I had the strangest dream last night.
Oh, yeah?
We were eating lunch at Popeyes, and my chicken sandwich had the most perfect buttermilk-battered filet and a toasted brioche bun.
That wasn't a dream. That's a dream come true. My new chicken sandwich is actually perfect.
Oh, now that is dreamy.
Can you say juicy, crispy chicken?
Can you say keep 'em coming?
Classic or spicy? Heck, for $3.99 a pop, might as well get both.
Limited time only. Price and participation may vary.
Love that chicken from Popeyes.
Football represents something we are. Football is like life. You gotta push.
Fantasy football is about proving that you are better than your friends.
Hold up.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Faceoff.
I'm gonna do what's best for the team.
Where fantasy meets reality.
Pure fantasy football nirvana.
And now your hosts.
Let the games begin.
Anthony Cervino and Michael Hauff.
Welcome back, everybody, to the FF Faceoff. This, of course, is a podcast where fantasy meets reality, and we are proudly brought to you by the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, the best in the
My name is Michael Hauff. You can follow me on Twitter at the FF Realist. My partner in crime is Anthony Cervino. You can be found at the Real NFL Guru. Anthony, how's about you on this Tuesday, I guess, evening, we can call it?
Yeah, I'm pumped. I'm happy to be here, and I know you just completed your SFB roster. I have a few picks left, but I'm feeling pretty good.
Yes, did complete my roster. I'm feeling good about it. Got some depth. I did pick up Rob Gronkowski. I was one of, 30 teams when I checked that picked up Gronkowski. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll go to war. It'll be fun. But, good luck to everybody in the Ocean Division. But, Anthony, more importantly, I'm a little slightly insulted. I posted if you guys are on Twitter, you guys would see the, the Face App Challenge. Folks are taking their photo and they're making themselves into an old person, whatever. Roll the clocks, 30 years forward. And, Anthony, you didn't really give me a great response. Your response was, that's eerie.
Well, it's eerie because it looks just like you. Like, usually these face warping things, they don't look that accurate, but I can actually, it actually looks like you, how you should look in however many years, 30 years. It's a little eerie.
Well, okay. Well, just because
I want to know if I'm going to be 10.
I also sent it to my sister, and she replied, that's creepy. So I immediately got 2 bad responses. So I was feeling good. My hair's looking good, I mean, I need a haircut right now, but my hair in the picture's looking phenomenal. It is. I'll take that hair to war any day. Girls dig an old guy that could pull off gray hair. Just saying. So whatever. I felt good about that picture. If you want to check it out, rip me to shreds at the FF Realist, and feel free to check out my SFB9 roster as well. Anthony, that's enough of that though. Let's get a little public service announcement from his lordship.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
All right, guys, you know the drill. If you like today's episode and subscribe to the channel, please leave us a comment saying that you have subscribed. And once you're done, we will reply back to as many as we can to show our appreciation to you. And just a reminder, if you ever want to skip the public service announcement or you ever just want to jump to certain talking points, go into the description and check out the timestamps. If you're using a mobile device, the timestamp links do not work. If you're using a desktop device on YouTube, they will work. But it doesn't mean that the mobile device and any platform outside of YouTube, that these timestamps are useless. All you have to do is open up your video or your podcast player and scroll to the time that you want to go to, and everybody wins. And also, if you're listening right now in a podcast format, especially Apple Podcasts, please subscribe. Please leave us a 5-star rating and a 5-star review telling everyone why you love the show, because the more 5-star ratings and reviews that we get, the more people we can reach and help dominate their fantasy football leagues.
and that's an order.
Mike?
Fantastic. All right, so good. All right, so there's that. Thank you for that from His Lordship Alfred Hayes. Today we are going to be talking about, sorry, I was so upset over my negative reactions to my photo. I completely forgot to tell the audience what we're talking about today. It's a great podcaster. Today we're going to be talking about some camp battles. Training camp is around the corner, so we're going to talk about some teams or some positions that looks like they're going to have some battles. We're going to let you know how we think they may fare and how that will affect your fantasy football roster. But Anthony, let's really quick. We'll just talk about one little news nugget. It's slash trending slash news topics. If you want to play a drop, play a drop. If not,
it's played.
It's played. Wonderful. See, I never know when it's played, so it's always a guessing game. That's always the best part about this show. So Anthony, perfect for you. Ezekiel Elliott. There were some whispers yesterday that Zeke was going to hold out of camp for a little while. What are your thoughts here? What do you think is going to happen? There was also a little more news today, right?
Was on Ezekiel Elliott?
The news being that he has a deadline of August 6th.
Oh,
and I believe if he doesn't show up by then, I believe it adds another year on. Well, if I'm not mistaken. So he's
news actually came out last night, which is why I was a little bit confused.
There you go. He doesn't have a ton of leverage.
Ezekiel Elliott will be on the field, and this is my take, this is my belief, will be on the field in week 1. Ezekiel Elliott has, a year or two left. The Cowboys can franchise tag him. He has a plethora of off-the-field issues, judicial issues, whether he's getting in cuffs and not getting detained, or he's getting shaken down for money. There's always something with Ezekiel Elliott, and that just adds the leverage to Jerry Jones. On top of it all, what you just said, that if he doesn't report, it screws around with his accrued years for his free agency. So Ezekiel Elliott has to show up.
Yeah, and by the way, back to your point about Jerry Jones having leverage, I had commented, I think Brandon Marion Lee had, was talking about Zeke and how his name is always popping up. And I said, all these news nuggets that he's always popping up for usually aren't good things. It's gonna be against him when he goes to negotiate this contract. Somebody replied that in no way will that happen. I don't know how you could say that. I mean, that most definitely is leverage for Jerry Jones. I mean, is Zeke going to get paid? Of course he is. But that is some leverage with Jerry Jones. I mean, think about it. If he gets in trouble tomorrow, which who the hell knows, it could happen, if he gets in trouble tomorrow, how many games is he suspended? Cowboys have to take that into account when they're negotiating these contracts. And it's only going to get worse with each and everything that happens. For a running back who's only 23 years old, he's producing quite the track record.
I listen to, I'm a big Colin Cowherd guy.
Oh,
and
God.
I take a lot of what he says to heart, and I don't disagree with him a lot. And today, Colin says that the Cowboys should trade Zeke, and that is something I don't agree with. Ezekiel Elliott, to me, isn't your everyday run-of-the-mill running back that's expendable. Zeke doesn't miss time. Zeke just keeps getting better. He keeps producing. The durability is a very, very big thing. I know the Cowboys moved on from DeMarco Murray after he went off, and I know that the Steelers, they were fine without Le'Veon Bell. Different situation here. Dak Prescott isn't Ben Roethlisberger. Ben Roethlisberger can throw for 5,000 yards, and the team could still win games, where if you take Ezekiel Elliott and a running game away from Dak Prescott, it's a completely different quarterback, completely different team. And for a team like the Dallas Cowboys, who has a pretty favorable schedule despite having a good year last year, they play the AFC East. the stars are aligning for a deep run and, dare I say, a Super Bowl run for the Dallas Cowboys. I don't want to hear anything about the Philadelphia Eagles. Dak Prescott, I believe was 3-1 against Wentz and 4-2 against the Eagles in 3 years. I don't want to hear anything about the Philadelphia Eagles. This is the Cowboys' time to strike. There's a 2-year window, and Ezekiel Elliott absolutely positively must be a part of this team.
I agree. Just to backtrack, we're never going to agree on Colin Cowherd. I think everything he says, I think he wakes up in the morning and he says to himself, what outlandish thing can I say to stay relevant? The Cowboys aren't trading Ezekiel Elliott. They're not trading Zeke. Zeke is I understand with DeMarco, they were more than happy to let DeMarco walk. This is a completely different scenario. And you're right. And we could say nice things about Dak Prescott. He always finds a way to finish well and help your fantasy football roster. But yeah, you take the running game away, it's going to hurt him. One last thing before we move on. I did make a poll, Anthony, yesterday. Which one of these Cowboys will wind up settling for less money or taking the hometown discount? I was told none of these players qualify for a hometown discount, to which you should check your Google machine for the definition. But be that as it may, it was Ezekiel Elliott, Dak Prescott, or Amari Cooper. Anthony, Dak Prescott finished in first by a wide margin, 61%. Then Amari Cooper at 21%. And then Zeke was in last, 18%. Do you agree with the public on that one? Because if all these guys get paid, and I get it, you could pull it off. But if you pay all these guys, it gets hard to keep a team together.
There's
Cowboys,
other parts. Yeah, there is, but the Cowboys also have the franchise tag to play with one of these players. And not only do they have these 3 offensive stars to pay, but, Leighton Vander Esch, I know he's going in year 2. He's going to want to get paid.
Yeah. That's
Jalen Smith. Yeah. You just paid DeMarcus Lawrence.
Right.
Byron Jones going to want a contract. So, yeah, they have a lot of players to pay, but I think you need to keep these offensive pieces together.
Wow. I think Jerry Jones is playing a little bit of Russian roulette if he thinks he's going to slap the franchise tag.
And I would probably put Cooper as the third on that list.
Okay. All right. So, there you go. So, listen, that's enough Cowboy talk, right? God knows you've gotten the Cowboys out of your system now, right? We're good to go? Yeah, I know you could talk about them all day, but we're not going to do that. Anthony, let's get into some of these training camp battles. Again, we took a couple of them. Obviously, there's plenty, but we're going to discuss a couple right now. The first one we're going to talk about here is the Philadelphia Eagles, and that would be the battle, or however you want to word it, between Jordan Howard and rookie Miles Sanders. Anthony, I'm not sure what your thoughts are on this, but I have to say something here really quick. I don't know if it's folks wishing success for Miles Sanders, wanting to be right about Miles Sanders being the best running back in this draft class, or if people really are just disrespecting Jordan Howard. I mean, I think we forget that this running back, Jordan Howard, is only 24 years old. He's produced in fantasy for the last 2 seasons. Granted, I think his rookie year was, but 2 years ago he finished 12th. This past year he finished right around 20. 250 carries last year, 9 touchdowns. It's about 70 to 80 yards shy of a 1,000-yard season, 70 or so. I mean, this is a very capable running back. So the fact that folks are of this mindset that the Eagles gave up a draft pick to get this 24-year-old running back, and yes, they drafted another running back in April, but to act like they're just going to throw Jordan Howard with an island of misfit toys, like as if he's Trent Richardson, I don't think that's true. Miles Sanders, by the way, on top of that, has been dealing with an injury, hamstring injury, that is. So he missed OTAs. So then you enter a situation where he's already behind the ball, which has been reported by Zach Rosenblatt of NJ.com. So there's something to be said for that. Look at Rashad Penny, and I get it. All running backs are different, and we're going to get to Rashad Penny later, but he started camp with that injured finger, if you remember, and he fell completely off the face of the earth. I'm not saying that's Miles Sanders, but I think it's getting a little too far with the hate on Jordan Howard. Anthony, I've said my piece. I've said more than enough. What are your thoughts on this camp battle?
You know how I feel. I've talked about this a lot. And yes, the Philadelphia Eagles, they brought in Jordan Howard, gave up a draft pick. He's in a walk year. All the reports are suggesting that Jordan Howard is going to dominate the early down touches. On the other side, Miles Sanders, dealing with the hamstring injury, missing time, playing catch-up already. I believe, let's see what the beat writer, Jimmy Kempsky of the Philly Voice, believes Miles Sanders needs to improve in pass protection, and he also noted receiving ability and ball security as concerns.
Right.
So there is still development. And this is the year where I believe Jordan Howard, he's going to have a big season. He's going to play behind an improved offensive line, an upgraded offensive line compared to what he had in Chicago. And Chicago wasn't bad. They were, 11th or 12th according to Pro Football Focus at the end of last season. But the Eagles were a top 10, top 6 unit, which is a pretty big upgrade. And Jordan Howard is going to be more effective. For Miles Sanders to retain the fantasy value or to cash in on his ADP, I think he's going to have a tough time doing that.
I'm
not saying that he's going to be completely invisible.
Right.
I just don't see the opportunities immediately being there because they still have Corey Clement and Wendell Smallwood, and you know that the Eagles invested long-term into Carson Wentz. And if this rookie doesn't improve in pass protection, he's going to become a liability for your football team. Because you can blow on Carson Wentz and he could be done for the year.
Yeah, both of these running backs, you mentioned ADP. Both these running backs are going late in the seventh round. I mean, and also to folks who are suggesting Jordan goal line here in Philly, of course he is. I mean, and granted, different team, but last year his rushing touchdowns all came out of the red zone. So to act like all of a sudden he's been traded to a new team, he's not going to be used, and they're not going to use him in the goal line. I feel like sometimes with these rookies, and then we'll move on, I feel like it's like when you tell your kids that you're going to take them to get some ice cream, and they get so damn excited, and they get tunnel vision, and they're all focused on this one thing. Granted, the ice cream always proves to be good, but I think folks are just too narrow-minded on Miles Sanders. They're completely forgetting about Jordan Howard, and those folks are going to be very frustrated. And you know what? To be honest, Howard owners, they're going to be frustrated too, because eventually Miles Sanders will be able to gain his stride here. I know they're saying he's behind the 8-ball, but I think this is going to be a back-and-forth thing where one week you're going to have a great Miles Sanders game. The next week it'll be Jordan Howard, and away we go on the merry-go-round of fantasy football frustrations. And let's not forget one other thing. For folks that are saying Miles Sanders is going to dominate this backfield, he's going to be the number one running back. When have you seen Doug Peterson in Philadelphia as a head coach have one running back dominate?
You can't handle
Granted, you can argue the point he hasn't had the personnel to do it, but I don't think that happens here. Anthony, anything else to say here?
I will say that Doug Peterson hasn't had the talent that he has now with Jordan Howard and Miles Sanders.
Right.
But no, I agree. I don't know if he's going to completely abandon the committee approach. And I'm not down on Miles Sanders.
I'm not either.
Down
I
on
know it
Miles
sounds like
Sanders to make an immediate impact.
Right.
I do believe Miles Sanders will be a breakout in 2020. So if you're in a dynasty league, scoop up Miles Sanders.
Yeah, I mean, he should be one of the
and
top
stash
picks.
him.
Yeah,
absolutely. And if you get a few pop games, like even in best ball, he'll have his moments where he's going to pop off big plays and show you what he could do. But I am buying into Jordan Howard a little bit more.
Right. Yeah. So to make it clear, we're both buying into Howard here. We're both not immediately burying Miles Sanders, but we're not taking it to the point where folks are suggesting that Howard's not going to be relevant for your fantasy football team, and it'll be the Miles Sanders show. So we're not on board with that. We're going to give the edge here to Jordan Howard. Anthony, with that, let's move on to another crowded backfield. That would be the San Francisco 49ers. Folks are pretty excited about this. They have an improved offensive line. They now have Tevin Coleman. They have a returning Jerick McKinnon. And then there's Matt Breida. To me here, I like to side with the idea here that Tevin Coleman, while he was quoted about a month ago talking about the differences between Kyle Shanahan as a coordinator and now as a coach, because obviously he played for him as offensive coordinator in Atlanta. And he said it's just Shanahan now has the ability he's got a lot more creativity. It's a new level of creativity. And in that statement, Coleman had mentioned that he even lined up as a wide receiver at times. So, but I like the idea that Tevin Coleman is probably the most familiar potentially with this offense. I get Jerick McKinnon was there last year, but he was rehabbing all year long after he tore his knee. Matt Breida obviously is familiar with it, but my issue with Breida is an inability to stay healthy. Granted, he only missed one game last year, but he was walking around like a Civil War survivor. You like the soccer players, everybody makes fun of them when they always get injured?
Yes.
That was literally Matt Breida every single game. And every time it looked gruesome. Every time you were like, all right, this is it. He's done. And he'd be back in the game. I get it. His yards per carry are great. I just have trouble seeing Matt Breida stay on the field for a long period of time. I think these guys are going to kind of eat each other. I think I'd go with Tevin Coleman as the top back. But, Anthony, what are your thoughts here on this 49er backfield?
I think we could see a somewhat of a timeshare between Jerick McKinnon and Tevin Coleman, with Tevin Coleman garnering the lion's share of the touches. You know, Breida might still be in the mix, but he could also be the one who is a healthy scratch.
Right.
Because Raheem Mostert will be active because he's a special teams contributor.
Yeah.
If an injury happens, of course, Matt Breida won't be a bad stash. If you have a deep roster, he's probably going to be drafted in most 12-team leagues anyway. But this is Tevin Coleman's backfield. And what makes me believe that is you already paid Jerick McKinnon. You had Mostert and Breida. So why sign Tevin Coleman if you're not going to use him? Where is the need there unless you were signing him to put him on the field? Again, he had a pre-existing familiarity with Kyle Shanahan's system from their days together in Atlanta.
Right. And one statement you can't really use is if folks want to suggest to you that, well, they've already paid McKinnon all this money. They have to play him. It's a very team-friendly contract. If there's one thing we could say about John Lynch,
they could have gotten out of that this year.
Right. And he hands out contracts like it's funny money. I've said that multiple times on this show. But yeah, all team-friendly contracts. Even the Tevin Coleman one is a team-friendly contract. So the other thing I want to just mention before we move on is speaking about Matt Breida's inability to stay healthy. In late May, he had a torn pectoral muscle. Now the Niners expect him to be ready for training camp, but still, it's just he cannot stay healthy.
You know, I'm shocked looking at Matt Breida's efficiency and productivity last year. 814 yards, 261 receiving yards, a little low on the touchdowns with 5. He was the number 7 back with 6 yards per touch, and the number 9 back in true yards per carry at 4.8 with an actual 5.3 yards per carry.
Yeah,
he was the 4th running back in breakaway run rate. This kid is a player.
He is, and I want to make that clear too. I know darn well that if he's healthy, he can play for sure. He's got the breakaway speed. Anthony just mentioned everything. He has it all. You could look at the game tape. But yeah, and my problem with Breida is his ability to stay healthy. If he stays healthy for a full 16, and if God forbid Tevin Coleman or Jerick McKinnon go down with an injury, like you said a little bit earlier, if Matt Breida could stay healthy, he will definitely eat. And with a ADP, which is in the beginning of the 13th round, it's not a bad insurance policy. I still think Tevin Coleman right now is the guy. One last thing, Anthony. It's funny. Tevin Coleman, 8th pick of the 6th round right now. Jerick McKinnon, the 10th pick of the 9th round right now, as far as half-point ADPs. Remember last year with Jerick McKinnon? Remember how real the hype was? 3rd-round pick?
Mike, I want to forget it because I bought into your 49ers.
So did I.
I bought in.
Crash and burn.
McKinnon, Goodwin, James
Garoppolo.
James Garoppolo. I can't even call him Jimmy anymore, Mike.
Still with the James. When do we call him Jimmy? Well, when do you call him Jimmy again? I'm calling him Jimmy.
I won't call him Jimmy again until he does something.
Well, what does that mean? What does that mean until he does something?
Okay. Play, be active.
Okay. All right.
How about that?
Sure. Very well. Okay.
Dak doesn't miss games.
Yeah, God, I forgot. Here we go. Okay, let's move on to the Miami Dolphins. We're going to talk briefly about this one. Not as much stats and stuff to go around here with this particular battle. I feel like this has more to do with the impact on the supporting cast, that being at the quarterback position, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Josh Rosen. Rosen, of course, was traded after the Cardinals went ahead and took Kyler Murray. Now, I mean, both aren't listed on the fantasy football calculator as far as ADPs, which is understandable. I mean, in early June, there were the reports that Rosen, not that he was necessarily playing poorly during OTAs, but Fitzpatrick was playing better. Fitzpatrick was taking a majority of those first-team reps. I mean, Fitzpatrick in 8 games played last year had more passing yards than Rosen in 14 games. So there's that. You could also attribute that to the Cardinals being a dumpster fire last year. But, Anthony, with this quarterback battle, does this give you any pause in some of the skill positions here with the Dolphins as far as drafting them? I mean, like a Mike Gesicki, for example. We like him to bounce back. If Fitzpatrick starts the season, he's not a guy who, you look at his history, he's not a guy who relies on the tight end all that much. I think Rosen, you'll get more of that for Gesicki. But what are your thoughts here on this?
Number one, this quarterback battle is atrocious.
He's gonna puke! He's gonna puke! He's gonna puke!
Yeah.
This is going to be a situation to where the Miami Dolphins, they want to see what they have in Josh Rosen. You know what you have in Ryan Fitzpatrick, a capable backup. He can start games. He could spark a rally. He's a feel-good story.
Yeah.
But he's not your future.
No.
The Miami Dolphins are going to be in a situation to possibly draft one of the top quarterbacks next season in the 2020 draft, whether it's Tua or I believe Herbert. But they might not need to do that if Josh Rosen is a good quarterback. I don't believe Josh Rosen is anything special. But just in case he is, the Miami Dolphins need to find out. And that's why I believe he will be the week 1 starter. The only way he's not the week 1 starter is if he just flat out bombs in the preseason.
Right.
We'll probably see Ryan Fitzpatrick later in the year, which is why I don't think he's a bad stash in a Scott Fish Bowl, or, if you're in a deep, like if you're playing in the FFPC or one of those deeper, high stake fantasy best ball leagues where you can carry a 30-man roster, you want to grab a Ryan Fitzpatrick. But to your point, is either one of these players going to resurrect Mike Gesicki? It wouldn't surprise me if it was a Ryan Fitzpatrick, because look at last year with Tampa Bay and what those tight ends were able to do.
Right.
No matter who's under center, it's not like the Dolphins are running with a Mike Evans and a Chris Godwin and Deshaun Jackson like last year.
Yeah.
Kenny Stills, rookie Preston Williams, Albert Wilson coming off the hip early, and Devontae Parker, who has never really done much in the NFL. Gesicki could be busy early and often, especially because of the offensive coordinator and the coaching regime coming over from New England, who knows how to utilize the tight end.
Lord knows he's got the talent to do it. Hope he puts it together. Disappointing rookie year, but we'll see. But all right, so really, so beyond that, it's really not hindering it's not really stopping you from drafting any of these Dolphins, obviously based on ADP and so on and so forth, roster construction, but you're not shying away from it because of the quarterback battle.
No.
Like if you could draft an Albert Wilson, let's just say, if you're in the position to do it.
It's not like the ADP is the 8th round, 10th round. You're talking about players that you can get, in a 12th, 13th, 14th, and that might be even a little generous saying 12th, 13th round.
Bargain basement shopping.
Right.
Indeed. Yeah.
So why not take a lottery ticket on some of these players?
And
because they're going to be, they're not going to be a very good team. They could be playing with a negative game script.
Yeah.
Bad quarterbacks, lean on the tight end and the running back, which is why I love Kenyon Drake this year. So.
And you mentioned, SFB. I think some teams, by the way, that just sidebar here, that handcuffed those two quarterbacks, I think they'll be okay. I think that'll help out. I mean, as your third quarterback, potentially, I think you'll be all right. I think you'll get some good weeks out of one of them. We'll just see who it ends up being. I think start the season, though, I'd say Ryan Fitzpatrick starts the year. That would be my guess.
Really?
I think you're going to see 2 games maybe where Fitzpatrick starts, and then it'll go to Rosen.
See, I think you got to put Rosen out there, see what he has, and then pivot.
That's what they should do. I think
this isn't Adam Gase anymore as the head coach.
I'm aware. I'm just and if you want to make a friendly bet, we can make a friendly bet. I think Fitzpatrick is a week 1 starter.
I think we absolutely have to make a bet on this.
Sure.
Oh,
and by the way,
may
one more
lose a bet here.
I had texted my wife the photo of me older, and she just sent me a text back that said, "Why would you do that?" So there you go. So there's your response to that. So she'll be coming home with the divorce papers. So all is going well with that photo. So all right. And by the way, also on YouTube, well, I just went to go check and see if anybody was in the live chat. It's currently there, but we already have 1 thumbs down, Anthony. I know that really grinds your gears. So
really,
yeah, must be a Miles Sanders supporter. I don't know. Who knows?
Unbelievable.
And Anthony's very upset now. Next thing we're going to talk about here is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Dante Moncrief versus James Washington. Dante Moncrief, Mr. Slam Dunk number 2, Mr. Standout wide receiver at OTAs. Last season, of course, on a different roster, on a Jacksonville Jaguars roster that was one of the lower end teams in regards to passing. He finished the year with 48 receptions, 668 yards.
Let's back up for a second. Can you imagine? Because we get a lot of, it seems like consistent thumb downs. Can you imagine if it's the same? Can you imagine if it's the same person who listens just to hit that thumbs down button? That they have nothing else to do.
Well, I mean, the joke's on him then. He's clicking. Thank you for that.
You're helping us, actually. So thank you.
I knew that still jammed you up. I knew you were going to come back to it. I just didn't know you were going to interrupt me. But all right, do you have anything else to say on it?
Get that off.
Are you good now?
Well,
I know you're not good, but can we?
I'm good.
You're good. Okay. Anthony does not like them. Maybe whoever does it actually likes the show, but just loves to get a rise out of you. Shit. I mean, I may start just giving thumbs down just to see what you do. So, because now if you get 2 for every show, you're going to lose your mind. You'll be texting me at 11 o'clock at night, pacing around your house. Anyway.
That will, yeah.
Yeah,
that's
you will.
True, too.
He will. It's a true story. So Dante Moncrief finished the season last year with the Jacksonville Jaguars, 48 receptions, 668 yards, 3 touchdowns. That was good for 54th amongst wide receivers. But again, you got to keep in mind that was also on a Jacksonville Jaguar squad that did not have a good year last year. Now he's in Pittsburgh. I mean, Anthony, we've seen number 2 wide receivers flourish with Big Ben before, or in this Steelers offense. I mean, different coordinators and such, but you go to the likes of Martavis Bryant, Emmanuel Sanders, Juju Smith-Schuster, which I think is on a different level than some of these other guys, but whatever. So there's a lot of optimism behind who's going to be this number 2 receiver. Do you buy into Dante Moncrief? We see those quotes, slam dunk number 2. What are your thoughts when you hear something like that about Dante Moncrief?
I feel like we've been there, done that with all the Dante Moncrief hype dating back to the Colts.
Right.
I get that he's coming at a fairly decent ADP, but as far as people buying into Steelers receivers not named Juju Smith-Schuster, people are either all in on Washington or all in on Dante Moncrief, and then you have the rookie Deontay Johnson sitting there, and Ryan Switzer, I believe, was 5th in targets last year, and he's kind of flying under the radar, had a nice little rapport with Big Ben, very versatile. You know my take. The number 2 option, the number 2 target leader on the Steelers will be Vance McDonald. So no, I'm not buying into Dante Moncrief. He's 26 years old. He has some of the tangibles, but it's Juju, it's Vance, and as far as who's going to be productive as a wide receiver, I think there's going to be a high variance of targets split between the three to see who is going to emerge.
So basically, you're saying this camp battle really for the Steelers' number 2 receiver should really be between Vance McDonald, Dante Moncrief, and James Washington. It's pretty. I mean, you're suggesting that James Washington's not even in the conversation.
I'm not a big James Washington guy. Not at all.
I'm not either. I just wanted to make that clear. But yeah, all right. So I mean,
because listen, if he was legit,
yeah,
why did they draft somebody and why did they sign Dante Moncrief?
Okay, it works. If you want to make that statement. Both of their ADPs, by the way, just for argument's sake, that being Dante Moncrief and James Washington, are going late in the 11th round. But Anthony, even if Vance McDonald, and I'm on that wavelength with you, that Vance McDonald is going to have a huge jump this year. Even if at that ADP for a Dante Moncrief, there's still production to be had there, right? Like, do you think, and I get it, different offenses, do you see Dante Moncrief doing better or worse than a 48 touchdowns or just touchdowns?
Should be better. Should be better,
right?
But this is also a player who doesn't have the cleanest track record injury-wise. There's a lot working against. Yeah. He played in 16 last year, but if you go back, 2017, 4 games missed with an ankle. He missed a couple in 2016 as well with a shoulder and a hamstring.
Yep. Collarbone, if I'm not correct. If I'm correct. Whatever.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, he's definitely had his issues with the old injury bug there. But yeah, I think Dante Moncrief, if we're talking about Dante Moncrief and James Washington, Dante Moncrief is the guy. But yeah, Vance McDonald is definitely going to have a presence. Do not expect, Juju Smith-Schuster, coming with Dante Moncrief. That's not going to be what it is. And if you're anticipating that, you're going to be a little disappointed. But I don't hate the ADP. So there's that. Anything else to say on that, or you want to move on, Anthony?
Well, and one more thing, and it's not like in the past, like before Juju Smith-Schuster, there wasn't really a number 2 receiver in Pittsburgh. Martavis Bryant was never on the field. It really was just Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell. And sure, Jesse James, he had a little bit of action. Heath Miller. There were musical chairs at the wide receiver 2 and 3 spot for the longest time, and Ben Roethlisberger was still productive. So there's not like a dire need for this number 2 receiver, for this Dante Moncrief to play like a wide receiver 2 fantasy asset,
right?
For everything else to work.
I just think folks tend to fall into the trap where we saw Juju do it. Now Juju's taking AB's spot. This must mean Dante Moncrief can shift right in and do exactly what Juju's doing. So that's all I'm just trying to say is it's not that easy. But I think Dante Moncrief will have a pretty good year. I think he'll have better years than he did in Jacksonville last year.
So. You would hope.
I would hope. And if you're high on Dante Moncrief, you should hope as well. But I think he'll be better than James Washington. So we'll leave it at that because that is the question at the end of the day. That's what we're discussing here. Beyond that, next team we'll talk about is the Seattle Seahawks. Chris Carson versus Rashad Penny. At the 2017 draft, for only the second time in the last 6 years, the Seahawks actually had a first-round pick. They used that, of course, on Rashad Penny. It considered to be kind of a lost season for Penny. Finished with 85 rushes, 419 yards, 2 touchdowns. So not a bad yard per carry, but just never really got the traction that some folks, me, were anticipating. He had an ADP last year. I went back and looked. He was going with the second pick of the 7th round. So when you're finishing 65 among running backs, it's not a great return on your investment. And while Penny was sleepless in Seattle, Chris Carson ended up finishing 15th as a running back in fantasy. Over 1,000 yards rushing. I believe he had 9 touchdowns. I don't have that in front of me, Anthony. If you want
Carson?
Yeah.
9 total, yes.
Yeah. So, Anthony, what are your thoughts here on this backfield, though? Because now, funny enough, I mentioned that Penny had a 7th-round ADP last year. Disappointed folks immensely. And you probably know this already, but where do you think his ADP would be right now? Based on what I just told you. You would think it'd probably be lower, right?
Yes.
He's actually going with the 12th pick in the 6th round right now in half-point formats. So that would suggest that folks are buying into the bounce back. Is Anthony Cervino?
While I'm buying in, well, first of all, the Seahawks ran the ball. They were the second most times of any team. 534 run plays. Who's their OC? Schottenheimer?
Yeah, and Schottenheimer was not shy last offseason talking about how he was going to run the ball. So.
And they will still continue to run the ball.
Yeah.
There will be plenty of carries to go around for both players to where I do see both being productive. There is also the fact that Mike Davis is in Chicago right now, who was also seeing his fair share of touches per game. Pete Carroll is kind of touting, hey, it's nice to see CJ Prosy is healthy. I don't want anything to do with that. This backfield is going to be a 2-headed monster with Chris Carson and Rashad Penny. But I'm still going to put my stock in Chris Carson because, well, everybody is ready to outseat him. And his ADP is unfairly, with the 5th pick in the 5th round in PPR scoring formats, should be a little bit higher.
I've got him at
he's a value.
11th. I've got him at 11th pick on the 4th in half point.
Yeah, in full, he's 5th pick in the 5th.
Which makes sense.
And that's a value.
I guess, yeah.
I want Chris Carson over Mark Ingram all day long.
Okay.
Because I don't see Mark Ingram finishing the season in Baltimore.
You're also on the
I'm on big time Justice Hill train.
Yeah, you are Justin Hill's #1 fan. Next to his parents, then it's you. Interesting note though with Chris Carson, by the way, as good as he was last year, he didn't have a top 5 game until the last 2 weeks of the season. Interesting, I thought. Obviously top 10s are in there, top 15s, but not a top 5 performance the last 2 weeks of the season.
No, but he was fairly consistent.
Oh, of course he was.
16th amongst running backs, 14.4 fantasy points per game.
Yeah, no, definitely. Obviously, he was good. Clearly, I'm just saying. I just found that interesting for as good as he was.
7th amongst backs in red zone touches. 5th in goal line carries. He had, 5th in rushing yards. Yards per touch and true yards per carry, a little bit lower than some of the bigger guys. Only 4.9 yards per touch, 4.4 true yards per carry, 4.7 actual. But still, it's not like Seattle's offensive line is great. Chris Carson is a solid RB2 that will be consistent throughout the year. Rashad Penny might break off some bigger plays, but if I want consistency, it's probably Chris Carson.
Yeah, I would side with that. If I had the draft now, I would draft with the anticipation that Carson will be the better of the 2 backs. I do think they're both going to kind of eat each other. It's going to be very frustrating. I believe in the Penny bounce back. I do. I I definitely do. I just think, if I'm picking today, I'm going Carson. Check back with me towards August. But right now, if I'm drafting today, it would be Carson. We'll see, Anthony. This may be something we may be able to eke a bet out on.
I think so, too, because I'm going to be on Carson, and that's not going to change.
Okay. And I could change. It depends on how this rest of this offseason, training camp's going to unfold in a couple weeks. So, but for now, we're both going Carson. With that being said, Anthony, let's get into our final camp battle here that we're going to discuss. And really, I mean, I put down, this is the New England Patriots, the defending Super Bowl champions, and I put down Sony Michel versus Damien Harris, but really it's, I guess, the whole backfield if you want. To me, simply put, I mean, James White is going to be the pass-catching back. That's not going to change. That's going to be the constant. To me, between Sony Michel's knee and, I mean, Rex Burkhead's never always had the cleanest bill of health. I like Damien Harris here to really, while folks are enamored with Miles Sanders and understandably with David Montgomery, I think some folks are kind of forgetting about Damien Harris here, and I think he's got a real shot to be effective for your fantasy football team. Listen, Sony Michel had worked on his knee again this summer. He had his knee scoped. Patriots expect him to be ready for camp, and he played in 13 games last season. Obviously, in the fantasy playoffs, not in the fantasy playoffs, if you played fantasy football during the NFL playoffs, God knows Sony Michel did well for you because he played like a beast in the playoffs. In the regular season, though, he did finish as the 28th best running back. Anthony, but I think let's not forget, Burkhead was injured for a large part of last season. I feel like if Michel spends any time on the shelf, this is going to open the opportunity for Damien Harris to carve out a role in this offense. What are your thoughts here?
I don't disagree. Michel already dealing with knee issues this offseason, had his knee scoped. They used high draft capital, and I can't stress this enough. It's not like the Patriots didn't have holes. They had holes. They probably could have drafted a tight end in a talented tight end draft where they drafted Damien Harris, but instead they addressed running back because I do believe that the Patriots believe that Sony Michel is a liability at times. And with Rex Burkhead's continuous injury issues and James White, he's more of your satellite PPR back. They needed another running back. Brady isn't getting any younger. They want to establish a run in the games, and Damien Harris could very well be a big-time value in your fantasy football draft.
Yeah, Tom Brady is not going to be the quarterback that he was a couple of years ago. This isn't to say he's not a good NFL quarterback, but he won't be great for you in fantasy, which, by the way, sidebar here, I posted my top 10 quarterback rankings this past weekend. I had multiple people come at me about not having Tom Brady in there. Like what? Do we think he's going to be top 10?
Yeah, I don't get it. Especially no Gronk.
Right. But maybe no Gronk. But, the Patriots are going to want to run the ball. And you're going to get – Tom Brady's going to give you the 5-yard in route into Julian Edelman. You'll get a deep pass every now and again. But it's going to be the usual – death by 1,000 cuts with the New England Patriots. But yeah, I really think Damien Harris, if given the opportunity here, I really think he can take a role in this offense. I think I would side right now with Damien Harris. I think he could potentially have a better year than Sony Michel. I'm worried about this knee. Folks need to realize the way his knee is, this issue's dating back to, when he was in Georgia.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is kind of like almost like a Todd Gurley-esque sort of thing. Like, I say that in the sense that this knee problem is not going to go away. He's always going to have a problem with his knees. Always. Folks just aren't focused on it enough, or they're not taken aback by it because Sony Michel is not Todd Gurley. But Sony Michel is going to continue to have these problems. And if there's a capable back behind him, not like a Rex Burkhead who's always getting injured, or not like a James White who's kind of great pass catching back, but He's not going to be able to carry the ball 20, 25 times a game throughout the course of a season. Damian Harris could be the competition for Sony Michel. So.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Sony is going to be the week 1 starter.
Right. Sure. As long as he's ready.
I'm not sleeping on Damian Harris.
Yeah.
Especially if I'm going to take any stock in Patriots running backs, it's Damian Harris, it's Rex Burkhead in a deeper league or a best ball league or an SFB, and obviously James White in your PPR leagues. I'm probably fading Sony Michel. If you look at the running backs going around his ADP, Kenyon Drake all day over Sony Michel, and I'm taking Chris Carson over Sony Michel.
Yeah, I'll buy that. Yeah.
And in PPR, I'm taking James White over Sony Michel.
Yeah, yes. Yep. I'll buy that too. I ignored Sony Michel. I mean, SFB draft, I had an opportunity to take Sony Michel. I didn't. I had an opportunity to take Damian Harris. I did. So that's, it's not that I don't trust Sony Michel, I guess. I know he's going to produce when he plays, but that's underlined and italicized when he plays. That's the concern. All right, Anthony, anything else to mention before we ride off into the sunset?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're listening right now in podcast format, especially you Apple Podcast users, please subscribe to the FF Faceoff. Please leave us a 5-star rating and a 5-star review telling everyone why you love the show and why we are the best damn fantasy football podcast where fantasy meets reality. Because the more subscriptions, ratings, and reviews that we get, the more people we can reach. And in the end, we want to help each and every one of you win fantasy football championships, dominate your leagues, and absolutely positively crush the competition. We will maintain the culture of winning we've built here in the FF Faceoff for close to 3 years since our inception and over 200 episodes. Mike, as always, take us home.
Yeah, fun episode today. Enjoyed myself. We'll be back with you guys again on Thursday. And Anthony, I want to say one more thing on the way out, by the way. I don't always like to listen to myself talk, despite what my wife might think. But I have to say, our shows recently, enjoyable to listen to. I listen to them myself. I like them. I think they've been well. I think they've been going well. So, and I can actually tolerate listening to myself and listening to my content. You're always spot on.
Thank you.
So
I tried.
Anytime. So I still don't want to listen to the first episode ever again. I was mortified when I listened to that.
I couldn't even hear me. My damn mic was so low.
Yeah.
I still want to release that on our anniversary.
I sounded like I was at the Masters calling some golf, and you sound like you were locked inside the trunk of a car. It's good. Good times. So, all right.
Now we have sound drops. Look at that.
There you go. And we probably will re-release it just to make fun. I mean, people are already bashing with the way I look as an older man. Might as well just pour on the hate. But folks, it's been a fun episode. We'll talk to you again on Thursday. Stay safe still in. Cheers.
Johnny got a toy golf set when he was 3, and from that day on, he was hooked. All he wanted to do was golf, golf, golf. He'd be on the links before school, after school. All he ever wanted was to go pro. And then, one day, when he was holding his grandson and thinking about his 12 handicap, Johnny realized it just might not happen for him. But you know what did happen for him? He switched to Geico and saved a bunch of money on car insurance. So that was good, and so was hanging out with his grandson.